Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got a Glock 27 Gen 5 sitting here on the table. It's chambered in .40 Smith & Wesson. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. And please consider supporting the channel on Player, formerly Utreon, where we can do some types of videos that are no longer allowed on YouTube. We've had a 27 Gen 4 and done a review on it. I'll put a link, of course, in the description to that review. I was out shopping, happened to see this at the local FFL. It was the last one they had. I hadn't really planned to get one, but this is one of the Glocks that's been discontinued. All of the .40s have been discontinued. And I decided, yeah, I wanted to give it a try. I like the Gen 5s. I'd shot other Glock 40s in Gen 5 and found that the recoil was a little more pleasant than the Gen 4. So I figured in the smallest one, let me find out if it's the same. Overall, this is roughly the same size as the Gen 4. It's 6.42 inches front to back. That's actually the same size. It's 4.21 tall from top to bottom, and that is 0.04 inches taller, and it's thicker. And this is one of the things with the Gen 5s, that the slides are thicker. It's a 1.3 inch slide instead of 1.26, so it's 0.04 inches larger. I've got a little oil there on the sight. Other than that, it's got all the same characteristics of any of the baby Glocks. They've got the U-dot sights, they're dovetail, they're replaceable, there's a screw at the front, the sight at the front screws on. It has that new NDLC coating they're putting on the Gen 5s, front and rear serrations. Of course, no more finger grooves. The Gen 5s don't have the finger grooves the Gen 4s do, and it does have the replaceable back straps. And the flush magazines are 9-round capacity. You can also use the larger ones in there. You can use the 13 rounds, the 22 rounds. There's a pinky extender version of the magazine. They'll all work just like any other Glock. But one of the fundamental differences, and I'll lock it back and show you, is that it has the new Glock Marksman barrel rifling, which is kind of a hybrid of polygonal and conventional. So you can see the kind of the hills and valleys of the polygonal, and then you can see the line with the conventional. And that's consistent with all the Gen 5s. They've gone to this type of rifling. I don't believe it makes a huge difference. Of course, Glock bills it as making a difference. And I also happen to have a Gen 4 sitting here, and I can show you the regular Gen 4 standard polygonal. And you can see the hills and valleys, but what's missing are the deep cuts, those sharp cuts that are along the lines of the conventional. And while I have this thing in my hand, let me close it up, slap a magazine in. Now, I mentioned the differences. I mentioned the height difference. If I put them side by side, it doesn't matter which way I put them, unless you're actually going to be able to get nose level with it, you really can't see the difference. It's that inconsequential of a difference. It's just, again, 0.04 inches, so it's minuscule. The thickness, however, is a little more visible. It kind of stands out. It just kind of looks a little bit squatter. So the Gen 5 is over here on this side, and the Gen 4 is over here. It just kind of, just the overall shape of it, you can just kind of see it, mainly because of the thickness here. It kind of stands out. Is it going to make a difference of holster? No, not really going to make a difference in holster. It does affect whether an older Gen 4 holster will actually function, so it may not fit in all of the Gen 4 holsters. But as far as strapping that holster to your body, once you have one that fits it, it isn't going to determine whether you can carry it or not, put it in your pocket or not. Now, something that also probably contributes to the different recoil characteristics is the weight. The Gen 4 is 21.34 ounces. The Gen 5 put on a little bit of weight at 23.85 ounces. So that's probably, of all the dimensional differences that's going to make a difference, is that weight. You can feel it's heavier. But given that, it actually did have a more pleasant recoil. It was a little less twisty, a little less slappy, and it just kind of overall the recoil felt a little bit better. Was it a massive, night and day difference? No, it doesn't feel like it's a 22. but it did feel more along the lines of like if I were shooting a 9mm from a recoil perspective. And that alone might be the thing that might make you go to the Gen 5. Since both are discontinued, as far as finding one, it's going to be catch as catch can. If you see one and it's the Gen you want, then act. Otherwise, I do believe these will over time disappear. The MSRPs have stayed pretty consistent as far as it's in the mid to high fives, and I haven't seen these take off in price yet. There's probably enough of them still out there that the various people that have them are just trying to sell them. Then you'll get into, okay, I got one, you want one, what's it going to cost scenarios as the supply eventually dries up, which it eventually will. Features, they both have the replaceable back straps. I mentioned that. Neither one of them has a Picatinny rail. The biggest other difference besides the finger grooves that you're going to get is the Gen 4s don't have the front serrations, the Gen 5s do. Other than that, they're fundamentally the same gun and really difficult to tell apart. And since this is a review, let me go ahead and show you the internals of it. Of course, it's unloaded. Pull it back just a little bit. Off comes the slide. Very much what you're used to seeing in Glock. There's a slight different layout of the fire control group, but it's minor. And when I get it put back together, I will show you the triggers. The triggers are different between the two. Other than that, it's your standard Glock configuration. Steel rails at the front, nice solid locking block, steel rails at the rear, and they're embedded in the frame. So this is not modular like the P320. That's not a feature that came in with the Gen 5s. Dual recoil spring, that's the same on for quite a while on the subcompacts. And of course you have the barrel, and it has that NDLC coating, so it looks very black, and it will wear here. That's one of the characteristics of these coatings, is they do tend to wear a little bit. The ramp is pretty standard. Yeah, the ramp is coated. I've never had feed issues with Glocks. They eat everything. And then when I go to the slide, pretty much standard high quality machining for Glock. You do have the oblong striker block instead of the round one that was in the older versions, or not striker, yeah, the striker block piston. It's oblong instead of round in the older versions. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. There's the screw under there to hold the front sight on if you were to replace the front sight. But fundamentally, same Glock that you're used to. Putting it back together is every bit as easy as getting it apart. Drop the barrel in, drop the recoil spring in. Like always, make sure the recoil spring seats all the way. Line it up. Let me turn it the right way. It'd be easier if I turn it towards me as opposed to trying to do it sideways for the camera. And you're back in business. So, let's talk about the trigger. The Gen 5s, they changed the way the trigger operates. You have roughly the same take-up, but you'll notice there's a slightly longer, softer wall. It is a defined wall. It is noticeable, but it's a little bit longer and a little bit softer. Nice short reset. I'm right on the wall. As I put tension on it, it doesn't move. And again, kind of pulling through a little bit longer wall, not quite as sharp and crisp as the Gen 4. It's a nice trigger, but it's different. I got the Gen 4 here. About the same take-up. Very defined, very crisp, a little bit stiffer wall, and it breaks. Reset's about the same. I'm right on the wall. And again, that very sharp, very defined, very crisp break. One of the things that's interesting, even though I found the recoil to be more pleasant on the Gen 5, I shot the Gen 4 better. And so did Hammer when he was shooting it. And I think it's the difference in the trigger. It's what you're used to. The more defined wall made it a little bit easier to just know exactly when it was going to break and pull those nice tight groups. So I did find it a little bit different. The only other thing you'll notice is that there's a little difference in the physical makeup of the trigger, and I don't think this factored into the ability to shoot it well. On the Gen 5, it's smooth. There's no serrations on it. On the Gen 4, there's serrations on the trigger. That, again, I don't think that had any difference in which I was able to shoot better. But I liked shooting the Gen 5 a little bit better, but I pulled tighter groups with the Gen 4. Kind of an interesting comparison. I think that'll vary from person to person depending on what you're used to, what trigger you like, what you're practicing with. I've spent a lot more time with the Gen 4 triggers than I have the Gen 5 triggers. And I don't think that is a reason to pick it over the other. I think it just, if you've got a lot of Gen 4s, you've been shooting Gen 4s, you're practiced with Gen 4s, and you move to a Gen 5, there may be a little bit of learning curve to get really good at it or get as good as you were with the Gen 4. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Player, Rumble. We're pretty much everywhere. And thank you.